This has Rams fans livid as they moved on from their first round pick before he even got a real opportunity in the NFL. We're talking about that move, what Sean McVay has to say about it, as well as what Sean McVay had to say about the cornerback room, all on today's episode of the Rams Digest. I'm your host, Joshua Giron. Remember, if you guys are not subscribed to the channel, do me the favor, press that subscribe button now, as roughly 65% of you guys are watching the videos, but you're still not pressing that subscribe button. All I'm saying is if you're already watching, might as well press that subscribe button so you don't miss any daily Rams content here at the Rams Digest. First things first, kind of the story that we've been talking about the last couple of days, right? Chris Paul Jr. as he goes unclaimed on waivers, but then signs somewhere that Rams fans may not be too excited about. This comes to us from Cameron De Silva of the Rams Wire. A little bit of my mix of opinion in here as well, but overall, I think, yes, a lot of Rams fans. First of all, I will say a couple days ago when I announced this as a potential possibility, something the Rams could potentially do moving on from Chris Paul Jr. in his first year before he even really steps on the field for the Rams. And a lot of people said it was not going to happen, right? Not possible, never happening. I'm not reporting things that are fake. I'm reporting things from fairly reputable sources. I do a little bit of research before I am talking about these things. And the reason why I was talking about it is because it looked like a lot of signs were pointing to the Rams may not really love Puka Paul Jr. and they may not want him on this roster. And it's unfortunate. A lot of Rams fans, I think, were very excited about what Puka Paul Jr. could have brought to the table at the linebacking room, especially a position where a lot of the Rams, moves in the last couple of years just seem to kind of almost ignore that position. Yes, you have undrafted free agent Omar Speights Jr. And yes, you have a guy who was kind of practice squad, borderline making the roster from Atlanta in Nate Landman come over. Now he's playing pretty well for you, right? Or looking like he could play well for you. And then you have undrafted free agent, again, Sean Dolak. Then you're talking about a guy like Troy Reeder, who we really feel like he's not the best inside linebacker for the team. And so ultimately, when you look at all those pieces, it starts to make you question of why wouldn't the Rams want to keep a guy like Chris Paul Jr. on the roster? I mean, ultimately, you need a linebacker. He's a fifth-round pick linebacker that you drafted this year, so clearly you liked him. Why wouldn't you keep him on the roster? And if you let him go and he clears waivers, well, then bring him on the practice squad, right? I mean, that's what we all kind of think and assume, but Chris Paul Jr. was undoubtedly the Los Angeles Rams' most surprising cut on Tuesday after being a fifth-round rookie. However, it seems he wasn't coveted by teams around the NFL. So maybe it's not just a Rams thing. Maybe there is something going on with Chris Paul Jr. where he's not wowing teams for whatever reason with his ability. Paul went unclaimed off waivers on Wednesday. So that really tells you that all you need to know, right? Nobody really wanted to use a waiver claim for Chris Paul Jr. So it definitely does tell you a little something about how the NFL sees him as a player, right? Meaning he's now a free agent. Any team can sign him to their 53-man roster, which, by the way, as of about 20 minutes ago, he did sign somewhere. We'll talk about where he did sign. It wasn't the Rams, by the way. Just a little spoiler there. He could sign with the practice squad, right, including the Rams. Didn't do that, but ultimately that was an option for the Rams as well. But we'll talk about what Sean McVay said in just a second and why we kind of assumed that wasn't going to happen anyways. It comes as a big surprise, even given his draft status, going 172nd overall in the fifth round just 4 months ago. Unclear if the Rams will want to bring him back, and we'll talk about why, because when you look at what Sean McVay had to say about it, this is Sean McVay talking about them releasing and deciding to move on from Chris Paul Jr. That last sentence especially, really what we focus on as to why the Rams probably were never going to bring him back. He says, first of all, a great dude. I really respect him as a man. It was not an easy decision, but what we are tasked to do is to evaluate when we went with 4 inside linebackers who we think are the 4 best inside linebackers. That's not exclusive to playing inside linebacker. Part of that is playing special teams. It's not anything to take away from Pooh because I have respect, love, and wish him nothing but the best. So ultimately, Sean McVay seems to essentially be saying here, right? It's nothing against Chris Paul Jr., nothing against his ability to play inside linebacker. Actually, we're considering special teams here. That is also a thing that we heavily consider when we're talking about keeping linebackers. And ultimately, we went with the 4 best inside linebackers. Maybe not the best at the inside linebacker position, but the best in terms of what we need them to do. And ultimately, it sounds like they needed Troy Reeder, especially. We're talking about Troy Reeder here mostly. Needed him to play special teams, and Puka Paul Jr., they didn't trust him as much as his ability as much on special teams, which is a very unique skill to have, of course, and definitely those guys need to deserve their own respect in terms of what they bring to the table. But ultimately, it seems the Rams essentially were saying, we don't think he's good enough to be our special team guy. We don't think he's good enough to be on the roster. We don't think we're going to play him much at inside linebacker either. Let's go ahead and move on from him. Wish him nothing but the best. And it's kind of disappointing that they didn't even think about bringing him to the practice squad. Now, maybe Chris Paul Jr., maybe they did think about it, and Chris Paul Jr. was like, I am not signing with you guys if you let me go. You drafted me. I want that 53-man roster spot. I think I deserve it. And then if you guys let me go, I'm moving on. Maybe that was the route they went. I don't really know. But ultimately, unfortunate to see the reality of the situation. The Rams decide to move on from Chris Paul Jr. and he signs somewhere else. And that place he went to go sign, of course, a division rival, the Los Angeles Rams. Chris Paul Jr. is signing to the Seahawks practice squad after getting cut by the Rams and clearing waivers. So, Chris Paul Jr., will he be a superstar stud linebacker? We won't know. We won't see that until a couple months down the line. And if he does become a superstar beast linebacker, who knows if that's actually going to happen, but if he does, it's going to be in a Seattle Seahawks uniform, which is a little bit disappointing. Ultimately, I'm not too mad at Chris Paul Jr. for doing that. It is what it is. Sign with whoever opportunity you think is best for yourself. I'm just disappointed that this kind of, I guess, experiment is something I didn't think was an experiment to begin with. I thought this was something that the Rams were being smart by doing, investing a little bit in the inside linebacker room, kind of hopefully improving upon what you had in the past, and ultimately they went a different route and decided to not even give Chris Paul Jr. a chance, really, in my opinion, and ultimately it's disappointing. I'm rooting for him, nothing but the best, but he's not a Ram anymore, so I guess we don't have to stress about him too much. I promise you we probably will bring him up if he starts balling in Seattle, of course, but we'll have to wait and see if he ends up doing that or not. I did want to bring this page up real quick for a second to show you guys other players that the Rams let go that also were now claimed off waivers, so now joining new teams. Willie Lampkin was claimed by the Philadelphia Eagles, a guy, offensive lineman we thought could be, actually no, it was Willie. I always get confused with the Lampkins. Let me make sure I'm double checking here. Willie Lampkin, I think it might have been the defensive back, actually. No, he is the center. So he was the offensive lineman that we all were excited to see, the shorts, 5'11" offensive lineman. He gets claimed by the Philadelphia Eagles. Brennan Jackson heads to the Raiders, and Charles Woods claimed by the Patriots, as the Seahawks also claimed cornerback Darion Kendrick. And so ultimately, the Rams did miss out on a couple of those pieces there. It is what it is. They decided to move on from him. Obviously, maybe hopes that some of these guys could make their practice squad. Didn't make the practice squad. It's okay. It happens. Part of the business. I'm not too frustrated by these names necessarily. Had higher hopes for Darion Kendrick, of course, and of course we all were excited to see what Willie Lampkin can do. But ultimately, the Rams do what they think is best for the organization, and moving on from these guys seems to be that for them, right? So, moving off of that, more interesting stories to talk about here as we are discussing what Sean McVay said about the cornerback room, especially how they view cornerback Emmanuel Forbes Jr. as one of their 4 starting cornerbacks. Forbes is a former first-round pick who's trying to revive his career in LA. This comes to us again from Cameron DeSilva of the Rams Wire, but ultimately a very intriguing conversation to have, right? When you hear them talk about cornerback room, when you see the cornerbacks they moved on from and how they kind of view this roster at this point in time at the cornerback position, it seems like they really are expecting Emmanuel Forbes Jr. to be a key piece on this defense. Here's what Sean McVay had to say. He says, I really think our corner group as a whole is really deep. We've got what we look at as 4 starting corners. So they're seeing Emmanuel Forbes Jr. in that starting cornerback kind of grouping. He says that's a positive thing for us with Akilo, with Kobe, with Darius. So I think those are your 3 starters. Probably Kobe on one side, Akilo on the other, Darius Williams in the mix as well, maybe in the slot. And then you have Emmanuel Forbes. That's a real positive thing for us. So he names Emmanuel Forbes as the 4. So it's not like we're kind of being cryptic here and don't know who the 4 are. It looks like it's Akilo Witherspoon, Kobe Durant, and Darius Williams, as well as Emmanuel Forbes Jr. being that starter for you as well. So I think that could be your rotation of corners. I think Emmanuel Forbes will probably be the 4th on that list, just off of talent and what he's production in the past, but also him being named 4th in this list by Sean McVay himself seems to be that's where he's at. So They see him as a starter. They view him as a starter. They are hoping he can be a good starter for them this upcoming season. That is a positive, I think, for the Rams. Looks like Emmanuel Forbes has really been working really hard this offseason, obviously trying to prove himself in the NFL. If he's proven to be a starter, that's great news for him in his career, but also great news for the Rams to have another piece there. Long, lanky kind of cornerback to kind of have out there to guard some pretty tall offensive weapons in the league. That'd be an intriguing move for the Rams to be a kind of weapon to have out there on defense, right? So we'll wait and see on how many snaps ultimately a guy like Emmanuel Forbes Jr. ends up getting in the regular season, but very excited to see if he can actually be one of these starters for this team. Moving on from that, last but not least, my favorite part of the episode, trivia of the day. I ask a trivia question. You give your trivia guesses down below in the comment section. Whether you're right or whether you're wrong, we'll give you a shout out on the next episode that I'm on here at the Rams Digest. Last episode, trivia of the day, we asked this question to everyone here. We said, who was the first player to throw for 5,000 yards in a single season? We had the multiple choice options for everyone. The multiple choice options for this question were A, Tom Brady, B, Dan Marino, C, Drew Brees, or D, Patrick Mahomes. A few of you guys did play along with the trivia of the day. Always appreciate when you do. If you missed this trivia question, you want to play along with today's, just give me a couple minutes. We'll give you another question for today's episode. But yesterday's episode, here were the shout outs. We had Floyd saying Dan Marino. We had Thomas saying great show and we will win the Super Bowl. Appreciate you, Thomas. Agree with you there. The answer to your question is Dano in 1984. We had Gerald saying Drew Brees. We had Paula saying Dan Marino. And then we had one more guest. I want to give a special shout out to the Real J. Will. He had a couple replies to his comment, and for some reason I couldn't screenshot it all with the group. Whatever. Special shout out for the Real J. Will. He says Cameron wants clicks. No way that would happen. This is him talking about Chris Paul Jr. not getting cut, by the way. He's a 5th round rookie. He is fine. For some reason, I think it's Dan Marino at 5084. Is that your time of the year? I don't really know. Oh, 5,084. Dan, you're calling out the yardage of Dan Marino. That's impressive. DeRoe J. Will. I remember having a card with that stat. I don't know if I have the actual stat for you, by the way, with the Real J. Will. But speaking on his other comment here, a lot of people, by the way, it wasn't just the Real J. Will. A lot of people had this perspective on my video yesterday, or a couple of days ago, or yesterday. He basically saying, no way they trade Chris Paul. This is clickbait. This is BS. Whatever. And I'm not mad at you guys for having that opinion. I think it was crazy. I thought it was ridiculous. That's why I said, shocking report. I cannot believe this is going to happen, because if it does happen, it's unbelievable. The Rams are giving up on this rookie linebacker when you're keeping a guy on the roster like a Troy Reader. It's not to say I think, or I know more than Sean McVay and this coaching staff, and I know that Chris Paul Jr. is a better player, or will be a better player than Troy Reader, but he has more potential to be. He has a possibility of being better, because we know what Troy Reader is at this point in his career, and it's not good enough, I think, for the Rams. And that's kind of where I was at, my perspective on wanting them to keep Chris Paul Jr. So the Real J. Will, sorry about that did happen. I wished he was a 5th round pick that was fine in his position, but ultimately now he's playing for Seattle. We'll see how he does out there. And then in terms of your guess, Dan Marino. So shout out to everyone here again for playing along with Trivia of the Day. Appreciate all of your guesses. It looks like 100% of you guys, 99% of you guys got Dan Marino. Gerald says Drew Brees. The correct answer for the Trivia of the Day of who was the first player to throw for 5,000 yards in a single season. The correct answer was B, Dan Marino. He did it in 1984. I don't know exactly how many yards he had that year, but maybe it's 5,084, like the Real J. Will said. Appreciate all of you guys for playing along with the trivia, whether you got it right or whether you got it wrong. But a special shout out to the ones who got it correct: Floyd, Thomas, Paula, and the Real J. Will. Appreciate you guys for getting it correct. If you saw this trivia question, you thought that was easy, I wish I could do that. I want to do it. I want to get a shout out just like those folks got on the next episode of the Rams Digest. Go ahead and play along with today's trivia of the day, and we'll give you a shout out whether you get it right or whether you get it wrong. Here is the trivia of the day for today's episode. What was the first NFL team to install artificial turf in its stadium and ultimately, kind of ruin the field that these players play on? I don't know. You guys, whatever side of the argument of turf versus real grass you guys fall on, you let me know. I truly believe the NFL should go back to just all grass, and a lot of players agree, by the way. The multiple choice options for you all on who was the first? Sorry, let me make sure I get the right question. Was the first NFL team to install artificial turf in its stadium? Was it A, the Dallas Cowboys? Was it B, the Houston Oilers? Was it C, the Philadelphia Eagles? Or was it D, the New England Patriots? Again, what was the first NFL team to install artificial turf in its stadium? A, Dallas Cowboys, B, Houston Oilers, C, Philadelphia Eagles, or D, New England Patriots. Give your guesses down below in the comment section. Whether you're right or whether you're wrong, we'll give you a shout out on the next episode that I'm on here at the Rams Digest. Other than that, that's going to do it for me on today's episode of the Rams Digest. Make sure you guys do me a favor. If you're not subscribed to the channel, consider subscribing before you go. That's going to do it for me. I'm your host, Joshua Giron, and I'm out.